All right. Yeah, after I rolled, now it's all not in the right spot. It'll be fine.
Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Are you good?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, Melanie
it's rolling.
Laura, it
is. Okay. Yeah. Technology led.
I mean, I wish it was rolling when I rolled down the hill. That was great.
Yeah. You missed the little tumble. That was great.
Yeah. Melanie and Laura, hi.
Hi. We're back.
So I think I've told you before about, so my friend Matt, actually it's one of Dennis's colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he created this thing. It's a really cool video talking about masculine and feminine kind of in the yin yang type of perspective, where one is the riverbanks and provides structure for the flowing nature of the other.
Right.
Now, if you can't figure that out, the flowing nature would be the feminine.
Right.
And the structure would be the masculine. And I was looking at this, and he created this really cool visual, and did a video on it, talking about it. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, there's some interesting tie-ins there with mythology.
Mm-hmm.
How many water spirits or entities or whatever were depicted as feminine?
Exactly.
I think that's really interesting. I mean, we have like sirens, and I think Kelpies were generally women. Kelpies and silkies, kind of the same thing, were usually women that came from the sea and shed their skins. Mm-hmm. So, but then, sirens and mermaids, you can argue, are two different things. But there were also sylphs, the little water sprites. Oh, the water version of a dryad. So yeah, we have a lot of different depictions in mythology as women in relation to water. Yeah. So I find that so interesting. So, because you know more on this than I do. You know more on the mythology. I know some, but I'm not as well versed. Right. So when you look at the water figures associated with femininity, what are some of the characteristics that you think of? Lithe, curvaceous, young, slim, unattainable, almost mysterious. Mysterious and slippery. Okay. Literally and figuratively. Yeah. That, like, for example, the story of the Silkies or the Kelpies, Celtic, Scottish, or Irish, Scottish, same basic creatures. Yeah. In order to keep one of these women, who were said to be very beautiful, you had to hide her skin. Her entire purpose while with you is to search for her skin so that she can go back to the sea. And she may make a bargain with you. Like, there's one story in which she says, if you lie to me 3 times, I will leave. And he tells her 3 untruths that aren't intended as actual lies, but she takes them as lies, and she finds her skin and she leaves. Or there are stories of the men holding the skin captive to force her to stay. So there's that piece of the whole slipperiness. Yeah. When you look at the idea of the water sprites or the sirens or the mermaids, their purpose in these stories is to lure and entrap. So how much of that dynamic, when we are talking about the flowing nature of women, has been perverted by the men telling the story? By the way, and I got my son this for his birthday last year, there is a new translation of the Odyssey by a woman. Oh my God.
And she went back and she's like, but wait, the translation was skewed by the people that were translating it. And she's kind of like given women their place back.
I love that.
From the earlier, tellings. Absolutely. So I just thought I'd mention that if you want to go hunt that down.
I'm going to go hunt that down because I am all about it. I am all about, mythologies and ancient cultures and belief systems and all of that. So.
I find it kind of interesting that, because I can't think, you mentioned young.
Yes.
And I can't think of any water figures depicted as anything but
young,
youthful, alluring, that kind of thing. So can we make some kind of a parallel?
I was just going to go with this.
Okay.
That is the spirit of woman.
Ooh, okay.
That
Tell me more.
Eternal youthfulness, that eternal beauty that we as a society fail to recognize.
Okay, so I actually really like you saying that, eternal youthfulness.
Yes.
Because
you play a lot. That's one of the things I admire about your relationship. You and Dennis have a lot of playfulness.
Yeah.
And we move away from that.
Yeah.
As a badge of maturity. We don't have to.
Well, and personally, I've been doing a lot of inner child work, right? And recognizing that allowing myself to be playful in the ways that are actually playful to me, and not prescribed by someone else, has been a huge part of my journey lately. And being able to, so water representing kind of the spirit,
the flowing of the feminine.
Okay. Because I'm thinking about other female figures in mythology, and there's obviously a ton of them, but or symbolism, and we're looking at think of the Fates, right?
Okay.
Which is kind of mirrors the mother maiden crone thing.
Exactly.
So I'm trying now to think about what in the bigger picture imagery says about the nature of women in mythology.
But from whose gaze? That would be my question.
Yeah.
Is you can read a lot of what was presented initially in these roles that female goddesses played, or these entities like Medusa, or the Fates, or the, I'm totally blanking on all of that stuff now because I didn't actually do any research. I just showed up.
We just, obviously
we literally just turned the camera on. But if you look at it strictly from the way that it is presented in the writing, there's hazards there.
Yeah.
But the hazards are to the men encroaching upon their territory.
Yeah.
They're just being sovereign.
So that is interesting, because I don't think most people look at it that way.
Yeah. Well, you don't ever think of it from the point of view of the monster.
Right.
I mean, maybe Medusa just didn't like company.
Right.
I mean, she just wanted to be by herself. She and her snakes were having a party. She didn't need anybody else showing up, but because people were invading her space,
right,
she was protecting her space.
So very figuratively and literally.
Right. Literally.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with any other female monster.
Yeah.
That's portrayed. Those are hazards and warnings to men. You're going into the realm of the sirens. They will pull you down and kill you in your watery grave. But who's looking at it from the perspective of the sirens, who may not want you dumping your oil in their little dolphin playground?
Right.
what was their motivation? Did anybody ever ask what their motivation was?
I saw a video on TikTok, I think it was, the other day. So there's a musical of the Odyssey.
I know, my daughter's totally into it right now.
And I was watching someone act out this little piece of it and realized from the siren's perspective, Odysseus had just cut off all of her sister's tails and thrown them back in the water to drown.
Right.
And she's portrayed as someone who just wants to kill Odysseus for no reason.
Right.
And, it
is
just because
not
it's her nature.
It is not in female nature to destroy.
Yeah.
It comes from our very DNA. Mm-hmm. We as women are creators. It's part of the divine feminine to create, to grow, to nurture. And I'm not talking about being a mom. You can still be a nurturer and not be a mom.
Right.
But it is not in our nature. It is a man's perspective to see a foe, to see prey, to attack for no good reason.
I mean, no good reason. That's
right. That's how it was portrayed. She has no good reason.
Yeah.
And turns out she actually did.
Right.
So again, it takes us to this place of perspective.
Yeah.
I read something the other day that said, I am not feminine like a flower. I am feminine like a thunderstorm. I am feminine like the surf. I am feminine like a howling wolf. I am feminine in ways that can sometimes be perceived, especially from men, but most oftentimes also other women, as threatening or dangerous, because I am sovereign, because I am in my own identity.
Yeah.
And that is threatening, especially when you look at it from female as male counterpart.
Yeah.
Why isn't it not male as female counterpart?
Well, because we don't live in a matriarchal society here.
Well, we're working on changing that.
And here's so I don't even know if I want that.
I don't either. I need the balance.
So
again,
I've
middle
had this
path.
conversation with a couple of men, and I see, there are men who think that a matriarchal society would basically crumble. Because I'm not saying I agree with that.
Oh no, I'm just I'm absorbing
because all of the infrastructure and stuff like that built by men, and I'm like, yeah, but I see a matriarchal society as being much more like maybe like the Native Americans lived.
Absolutely where I was going. The Council of Mothers. Yeah. The Council of Mothers in most Native American tribal arrangements. The men did all the deciding about who they were going to fight or whatever. But if there were larger issues, as far as it pertains to the tribe as a whole, ultimately, the final decision was left with the Council of Mothers.
Yeah.
I think we need both.
I agree.
I think that we need the doers, the masculine, which is all about the work required. Now, women are all about creating, but we need somebody to carry out the work of the creating. How many TikTok videos do we see about a woman who's got all these chickens and all these little baby cows and all these baby ducks, and her man's out there building a shed?
Yeah.
I want all the cows and chickens and baby ducks, but I don't want to build the shed.
Right.
I mean, I can build the shed. My kids say that, the only two words you need to know about dating mom is DeWalt and Milwaukee. So, I mean, they
can totally do it. Do we want to do it?
Do we want to do it? And do we want to take that power from them?
That's absolutely
because
true.
There is a sense of accomplishment, a sense of purpose, and a sense of caretaking that we rob from men by being hyper independent like that.
Yeah.
We don't soften into our feminine, mostly because we've not been allowed to.
Right.
Because it's not safe.
We've been told that it's wrong to soften into our feminine. We've been told that feminine nature is somehow
weak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's being a victim.
Right.
It's all these things that we don't want to do that.
Right. I don't want to identify as being a weak victim.
But
because
I'm
not
being 100% honest, since I have been allowed to be in my feminine, to just be me, I feel more empowered now than I ever did before.
Yeah. You don't have to carry all the weight yourself if your partner's carrying it too.
Yeah. And I'm just going to put this out there. When we talk about masculine and feminine, that doesn't specifically pertain to
male and female gender.
Male and female.
Right. It's
sometimes
energy.
When I talk to people about it, I use yin yang because it is less, wow, that's a bad joke. It's less polarizing.
I knew you were going to say that. Because we talk about polarity a lot.
Right. And the whole concept of masculine and feminine is about polarity.
I think too, sometimes I want to be careful to err on the side of inclusivity.
Yeah.
That there may be lesbian couples, there may be trans couples, there may be a variety of individuals who are receiving our information. I don't want you to believe that we have nothing to offer you if you aren't a female partnered with a male.
Right.
It's when I talk about the masculine and I talk about the feminine, I am talking about the being versus the doing.
Yeah.
The growing versus the sowing.
Yeah.
The sunlight versus the moonlight. Those are all aspects of masculine versus feminine. And we embody embody that.
Absolutely. And I've worked with some lesbian couples who in different ways, one would take
the more masculine
traits and bring that to the situation, but then the same one would bring more feminine traits to a situation. So it's about balance.
It's about the middle path.
Exactly. The middle path.
Which is where we are, or where we're trying to stay. So again, we will warn you, when you're on the middle path with us, we like to take bunny trails. So, we'll jump off the path and go over here for a minute and then come back to the middle path.
And sometimes, a lot of the things that we say will sound as if they're coming from a very heteronormative place.
Right.
And
we're not tied to that dynamic.
It's not that we're looking to exclude anyone. Take it for the concepts that lie underneath.
Right. Don't get hung up on our language, because sometimes we don't even understand ourselves. Sometimes we have to say things 2 or 3 different times before we really get to the kernel of what we're trying to talk about.
Right.
But I think the crux of it is that there are many representations of women being a flowing, untamed type of turbulence. And that we've all seen just recently what hurricanes can do, what floods can do,
I think
what
there was
tsunamis
that
can
they were
do.
normally used to be only named after women.
Exactly. But it's because unchecked, that divine feminine energy can wash everything away.
Absolutely.
It can drown everything around us, including ourselves. And what helps contain the turbulence are those riverbanks, that masculine energy. And we can either achieve that in partnership, as this relationship very beautifully demonstrates. But if you can't find a unicorn named Dennis Collins, then you have to be your own riverbank. You have to define your own sense of containment. And how do you contain without restraint?
But I think that, I was having this conversation with Dennis at one time, and I'm like, but when you look at it from the other side, right? The river that is flowing gives benefit to the banks too.
Absolutely.
Right?
It carries nutrients.
It goes both ways.
It carries nutrients.
It softens the edges of the rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We work
that's what
those
we
rough
do.
edges off.
Right.
And create something that's a little softer sometimes.
Yeah.
I cannot think of other
the
things
imagery
that I came up with then, but
it also, not only is the river, as the river is being contained by the riverbanks, we're softening the edges of those rocks. We are putting nutrients into the soil. We are washing away debris.
Yeah.
We are depositing seeds and ideas that are foreign to that fertile soil.
And the banks may contain the river, but we change the course.
Yeah. Yeah, because the river ultimately changes the course. And if he's a good riverbank, he's open to going with the flow.
Yeah.
You know?
Ooh, I like that.
He's a good riverbank.
Yeah.
I think he's a good riverbank.
Oh gosh.
So I love the imagery of that. And I like how we can not only hopefully find that in relationship, but within ourselves, going back to how do we restrain, how do we contain without restraint?
Yeah.
You know, because there's a difference between service and servitude.
Right.
There's restraint and contained. There's contained and restrained. This is another concept that comes up in my goddess circles, is being the container. The space that we are in is a sacred container to hold all of the energies that are being brought in by these women. Those energies don't get spilled out. You don't share what's in the container. You hold the container. That is us actually being in our masculine while exploring our divine feminine, because we are still able to hold that space, which is a very masculine job, and allow that free flowing feminine energy. And you can do that with yourself as well when you're going through, if you're working through healing childhood trauma, if you're looking at exploring shadow work, all of things that, you know, if you're interested in learning more, we'll probably talk more about shadow work later. But shadow work is about, and inner child work are all about digging down into the damage.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of emotion that comes up for that. But we are also learning, when we do it, to hold space for those emotions.
Yeah.
To not push them down or push them away or minimize them.
Provide that container for ourselves.
To provide that container for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think there's probably not a woman listening who hasn't experienced being washed away by her own emotions.
Absolutely. And now I'm back on mythology again, because I'm thinking about destructive forces that were portrayed as women, and I'm thinking Furies, and I'm thinking
Furies.
Oh, where did it go? Banshees.
Yes.
Kind of, you know, just some of those.
The monsters.
Yeah.
The destructive forces. And
some of them were individual, but some were more widespread.
Right. Right. I think that we have a lot of work to do in figuring out how to balance stepping into that feminine, that powerful feminine energy.
And then I love that you said that.
Yeah. And that ability to also ground it and balance it by ourselves.
Right.
With sovereignty. Sovereignty is a big word for me, because it's all about being whole and complete unto myself.
Right.
Go ahead.
So then when you're in a relationship, being able to allow that other person to be the container That for me is where the empowerment came from.
Yeah. And that for me is a really freaking scary idea.
It's terrifying. Holy crap, that journey.
Yeah, I've watched her freak out. I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. I've watched it, but because he's a good riverbank, because he's a good container, she's able to really churn up some really amazing power. And I've watched it. For me, I don't have that same kind of dynamic. And so I have to be the one to get out of my own way when there is someone in my life who is offering to be that container. One, to trust that they really mean to be my container. Because there are a lot of guys out there that say they want to be the container when they don't realize they need to contain the Atlantic Ocean.
And that goes into boundaries and learning how much to give at what time.
Right, and communication. Yeah. The other piece of it is allowing myself to be that vulnerable. Yeah. Allowing myself to step out of this sense of hyper-independence. One of my favorite sayings right now is hyper-independence is a trauma response.
Absolutely.
It was something that I was very proud of for a very long time. I didn't need you. I didn't need anybody. Now that I'm recognizing that it's a trauma response, it changes how my relationships have been colored.
Yeah.
It makes me look at where was I stepping outside of my feminine and taking the role of the masculine, either because I had paired myself with someone who wasn't capable of taking it on, or I sabotaged what could have been a good relationship by not getting out of the way.
And this all has to do with trust in yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? That vulnerability piece requires that you be able to trust yourself to handle whatever it is that comes your way. And being able to trust yourself enough to, it sounds weird, trust yourself enough to give up, not give up, but hand over the reins, hand over some of that.
To allow partnership.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. That terrifies the crap out of me personally because I have a bad picker.
It needs calibrated.
It definitely needs to be calibrated. But I look at it, and I think there are probably some other people that can resonate with this. If I can, how do I want to word this? If I can put myself in a harmful relationship, how can I trust that I'm not going to do it again? How do I recognize when someone is genuinely capable of being that container, of genuinely capable and wanting to be that riverbank? How do I recognize it without it making me want to run for the hills because I kept turning this over to individuals that weren't capable, didn't have the tools? Not that they were bad people.
Some of them were really good at convincing you quickly. And I think maybe some of that is the key.
Yes.
Because consistency is one of the traits that is identified with the masculine side, right?
Yeah.
And consistency is the thing that eventually
convinces you
to
the trust.
Being able to trust and give that over. That consistency piece, so freaking huge.
It was part of her vows and part of her wedding ceremony. The consistency piece of her husband continuing to hold the door for her.
Oh my God, yeah.
She kept waiting for him to stop holding the door. And he never stopped holding the door. I think a lot of us go into relationship understanding fully the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
Understanding fully all of that. But waiting for the shoe to drop. Waiting for them to not hold the door. Waiting for that to happen.
Honestly, that's us bringing our past baggage into the relationship. I remember some of the journey of me trying to learn to trust, right? Trying to learn to lean into the feminine and just let him lead. Mm-hmm. Right? Because, dear God, I get so tired of making decisions. I don't want to have to run every vacation. I don't want to have to do all that.
Decision fatigue is a thing.
Oh God, yeah. I want someone who's invested like I am, and I can absolutely do those things, which I will tell a story about in a minute. But I don't want to have to do it all.
Right.
Letting him do some of those things is letting him lead, right? I was so terrified for the longest time until I came around to the point of, you know what, Melanie? You have the resources. You have the ability to handle whatever it is. You have survived every single rough day you've had until now. You can do it again if you have to. Give him the chance to show you, to display the consistency without yanking it back from him. And that is so hard to do.
It's scary.
But
it's scary.
here's the thing about the trips and planning trips.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God. So he plans every trip we take down to the detail. I know all I have to do is pack my bag and show up.
Nice. Told you he was a unicorn.
And our honeymoon was very much that way. Like, we were all over Scotland and England, and I was just like, all right, I'm here. Where are we going? What are we doing? Where's the train? I don't know what.
Like, point me in a direction.
what train station are we supposed to be at what time? Like, 5 minutes. Let's go.
All right.
You know, like, I had no clue, but it was great because I didn't have to think about that. He has proven that he is consistent, and I have proven that I can give him the ability, the space to lead, right? But when I planned a trip, so I got him tickets to a concert for Christmas one year, and we planned, and we head off to the city that it's in, which is about 5 hours away.
Right.
We get about an hour outside the city, and I'm like, I forgot to book a hotel.
Oops. Oops.
You know what he did?
Got on and booked a hotel?
He said, that's okay. I kind of knew you weren't going to remember
and
that
he
piece.
did it?
He did it.
Good man.
I know, right?
Good man.
But
did he do it in a way?
Oh, no, it wasn't.
It wasn't, I knew you weren't going to do that.
No. It was just kind of a grin. He was like, yeah, I got you. I gotcha.
The sexiest thing my husband ever said to me was, I've got you. I was having an emotional breakdown, and he held me in his arms and he said, I've got you. It was the sexiest thing my husband has ever said to me.
Yeah.
It not only made me feel safe, but it validated that he was the right choice.
Yeah.
It was because some of us that have not had the greatest track record really question our choices. We really question whether or not this is just going to be a repeat of the same thing. So why the heck bother? Sorry.
Curse.
When you start to support your own inner masculine, you stop leaning on your partner so hard that it crushes them. Because we are women, and we are powerful, and we literally contain the world and the future. For us to try and hold some mere mortal man to the standard of a divine masculine, we seek affirmation. We seek validation. We seek support. We seek understanding. We seek all of these things that can be found within ourselves and take the burden off of the partner. When you start doing that, you are much more capable of recognizing whether or not you are in the right place in relationship.
That is so true. This speaks to something I used to talk to. I'm thinking of one person in particular. Something I have talked to clients about in the past is making sure that you are not making your partner your caretaker.
Absolutely.
And that is almost exactly what you just said.
Well, and it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Because if we are constantly expecting our partner to be our caretaker, we can then not in turn resent when they treat us like mommy.
Yeah.
We can't resent when they also expect us to be
kowtow to what
their caretaker, or to be subjected to their rules, their regulations. Because when we do that, it looks like and feels like partnership, because that's what's been modeled for us for so long.
It takes away the romance.
Absolutely.
It takes away the things that actually do make partnership, because not partnership, it's caretaking.
Right.
You know, you're making them responsible for your problems. One of the things that Dennis and I do a lot is, when and usually it's me. I'm the one working through a bunch of old crap right now. And so
that's only because he's older and had more time to do it.
Yes, we'll go with that. But I will say to him, I want you to know that this is what I'm working on, not looking for you to fix it. Just I want you to know so that you are aware that if I have this response, I'm aware of it too, and I'm working on it. I don't want you to even think about that I'm trying to put it on you, right? I am very clear about that because it is mine to fix. I think I even said this to him in the first couple of weeks that we were dating, where we had done this this exercise where basically we kind of wrote out, this is what I'm looking for in a partner. And mine had a lot of caveats. Mine was like, I'm looking for someone financially responsible. I'm not looking for anyone to fix the stuff,
right?
Because that's mine to fix, but I need to make sure that this person is in a healthy place,
right?
And that mirrors the way that I still approach it. That makes sense?
Yep. Yeah. I think that by doing that inner work, regardless of what name you put on it, by doing the inner work and healing those places that put your partner in a position of caretaking, or put you in the position of caretaking, because in a lot of relationships, it goes back and forth.
Oh, absolutely.
In a lot of relationships, there's a season in the relationship where she's the caretaker, and season of the relationship where the other partner's the caretaker. And then we parentify the caretaker, which automatically presumes that your partner is childlike, less capable, and will sometimes mirror that back at you by not showing up, by not being capable, by not being mature.
This shows up in relationships like where, so one of the common ways I see it is, and I kind of have to divide this on gender lines because that's what I commonly see. Women tend to take like control. Like they want to control every aspect of things. They want to micromanage.
Mm-hmm.
They want to, say, well, it has to be done exactly like this when different.
Towel folding, dishwasher loading, that kind of micromanagement.
It becomes, if you're parentifying yourself in that way,
mm-hmm.
then you get upset when your partner looks to you to fix something or find out how to do something.
Then you're exhausted from the mental load that you yourself created.
Give them space to do things their way. It's different. It's not necessarily wrong.
That was a dynamic that I saw play out with my husband and his ex-wife and their child together.
Mm-hmm.
If it was not done mom's way, it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if he tried to do something dad's way, that task was completely removed from him.
Yeah.
And then mom would turn around and point out to people all the areas that dad was not involved when she was the one removing him from those situations.
Yep.
So if you have a situation where you are micromanaging to the point where you can't allow your partner to figure out their own way of doing it. Like I used to get really freaking hung up on the towels. Really, I mean, I would unfold the towels just after he'd folded them. And so he got to the point where he was like, I'm not folding the towels anymore. What's the point in folding the towels? You're just going to refold the towels. And then I was pissed because I had to always fold the towels. I let go of the fact that the towels are folded. They fit in the cabinet. We're fine. I don't care if we triple folded it or double folded it or whatever. However it was folded, it was folded. It was fine. Same thing with the dishwasher. You let go of those pieces and they're more inclined to do it more often.
Mm-hmm.
But if you set your partner up to fail because they aren't doing it exactly the way that you want it done, and you haven't given them the autonomy to figure out how to do it themselves, one, you make more work for yourself. Two, you have parentified yourself. You've given them an out. If they don't have to deal with you bitching at them about it, they'd rather not deal with you bitching at them about it.
And then you can put out weaponized incompetence. And
right. Oh, we're going to go into weaponized incompetence at a later date. But you cannot then, in all fairness, after having taken away all of these things that you required help with, but rejected the help because it wasn't the way you wanted the help to be received, you cannot then turn around and be the victim.
Yeah.
Because you contributed to the victimology. And that was one of the things that frustrated me the most about this was the narrative of the uninvolved father.
Yeah.
When it's not as much uninvolved father as it is overly involved mother.
Yep.
Because that's the dynamic that she's playing out.
Right.
As the good mother, as the good wife.
As the perfectionist.
Exactly.
Perfectionism is rooted in anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a huge piece of you don't necessarily trust yourself or your partner.
But if it's going to fail, you would rather you be the one it fails on than your partner.
I think for some women that's true. I'm not sure that's true for every woman. Sometimes there's something, it's a different shade.
I can see that. But I know when I was stuck in that, it's like you get a new car. You're going to be so pissed if someone dings your door. But if you ding your door, at least I'm the one that did it.
Yeah.
So for me, that was my piece.
Yeah.
But I've also seen it play out with other women where they wanted the control.
Yeah.
They wanted that dynamic.
Well, and that's another topic that eventually we will talk about because, I've if you're seeking power in a relationship and there's a whole lot to go into there. I wanted, so the concept of, it has to be done my way and all that. So you knew my ex.
Yes.
And I'm sure you can kind of see this. But he didn't do the dishes. But anybody else who did the dishes had to do it his way.
Right.
The dishwasher had to be loaded his way. And he would come in and nitpick. And I'm like, do you want to do it? Just do it.
Right.
Like, don't nitpick me because you're not even part of this. Right. So when Dennis and I started dating, this man cooks too. So.
Well, I might add.
Anyway, God, he's not perfect. Okay. Well, let me just get that straight. Nobody's perfect. But
he's damn well close. I'm telling you, from the outside looking in, yeah.
He's going to be watching this and going, "Oh God,
he's going to be like,
stop!
Oh, I'm great.
I'm great.
No! Oh no!" He's
Anyway,
like, "See, I told you."
When we started dating, and he had me to his house, he'd made me this really nice lunch, and I'm like, "You did all this cooking. Let me clean up."
Mm-hmm. So
I'm cleaning up, and he's watching me really closely on the dishwasher, and I'm like, so just so you know, if you don't like the way I'm loading the dishwasher, you can fix it, but wait till I leave.
Okay. What did he say?
And he goes, okay, that's interesting. So who says how the dishwasher gets loaded?
I love it.
I said, the person doing it.
Right.
And he goes, I like that perspective.
Yep.
And we still talk about that to this day. The person doing it is the person who gets to decide.
But so often in relationship dynamics, there's one person dictating the way it should be done, but they're not doing the work.
Yeah.
And there's an old saying, you can, a man will say to a woman, you can tell me you want something done, or you can tell me how to do it, but you can't do both.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want something done, tell me you want it done, and I will get it done. Mm-hmm. My way, my time, whatever. But don't stand there and tell me exactly how to do it. You're capable of doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that I was guilty of. That I was so wrapped up in the perspective of the perfectionism.
Yeah.
That it had to be done. And I can trace it back to my own childhood trauma. I had an abuser that was a parent that would torture us if things weren't done precisely. Mm-hmm. To the point of, you didn't fill the ice cube trays, so we're going to dump out you didn't fill it right. So we're going to dump out all of the ice cubes.
Yeah.
And make you refill the ice cube tray. You didn't load the dishwasher right, so we're going to put all the dishes back in the sink, and you're going to do them all by hand because you obviously don't know how to load a dishwasher. There was trauma there. Absolutely. Around the perfectionism.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't done according to what I now know are that person's idea of right, wasn't mine. But I had the anxiety if it wasn't done the way he wanted it done, I was going to get in trouble. So you better do it the way I want it done because I'm going to get in trouble if it's not done the way. So it's this whole mix.
Little inner child healing tip.
Mm-hmm.
If you can identify who that voice is that says, you're not doing it right, it has to be done this way. For example, I hate vacuuming with a passion because my mother made me move, like I'm 9 or 10 years old and I had to move every stick of furniture every single time I vacuumed and the whole nine. I hate vacuuming still to this day. But I identified, oh, this is my mom. This is why, right? Give it that name. Talk back to it. It makes a world of difference because when we were kids, we didn't have the option to talk back.
Absolutely not.
It's a way of taking your power back.
Absolutely.
So just thought I'd throw that out there.
And that is something that I've done the work for, and I've recognized it, and I've been able to heal that. So unless the kids have loaded the dishwasher where we have plates stuck together and the water's not getting anywhere, I don't mess with what's in the dishwasher anymore.
Right.
Towels are folded the way they're folded. I don't mess with that anymore because I'm not required. It doesn't trigger fear and anxiety in me. My partner can fix a meal the way he wants to have the meal fixed. I used to get bent out of shape because he couldn't just do a straight grilled cheese sandwich. He had to add all kinds of fancy shit. Well, now I like the fancy shit. But because I was so invested in it being done the right way.
Right.
Well, who says my way is the right way? My right way might just be a fucked up version of somebody else's wrong way. We never know, because everything is going through our own filter.
Right.
And if you put your partner in a position where they can't make their own path, it comes back in conversations that I've had with my partner about, no, this is your home. I just live here. That's not something you want to hear when you're in partnership.
Yeah.
But it's because I made it my way or the highway. I made it, this is how it's done if it's done properly. If it's not done that way, it's not done properly, then, well, if I can't do it properly, my partner's thinking, why the hell do I need to bother? So then he stops offering, he stops making the effort, and then I get pissed because I have all the work on me when we refuse to see that we are the creators of that dynamic.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we want to discuss when we're in these discussions here, is how we can see these dynamics.
Even if you have a hard time seeing that, or coming on board with the idea that maybe you have created it, right? How did you contribute?
Right.
Because we cannot change the other person.
Mm-mm.
We can only work on ourselves.
Right. And if we are willing to accept situations and dynamics that aren't helpful or healthy, then we have contributed to it by not setting a boundary, by not saying, yeah, that's not cutting it for me. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get back to that destructive force of femininity.
Yeah.
Because we can flood ourselves and our partners and our relationships because we haven't learned to contain those areas of ourselves that are still running rampant, that are still causing chaos and washing away the foundations of something that could be built on and be built very strongly, because we aren't in control of we haven't built our own riverbanks. We don't have our own containers. And so here we are expecting this partner of ours to build and hold our riverbanks. Well, you can't build and fortify a riverbank during a flash flood.
Yeah.
And if all you're ever doing is dumping flash floods here and there in your world, those riverbanks, you can't expect, excuse me, you can't expect support from a partner if you're not able to model for them what that looks like for you.
That's fair.
If you can't show your partner, this is my riverbank, and I'm maintaining my riverbank, how's he supposed to know, or how's your partner supposed to know that's what a riverbank looks like?
So I will also counter that a little bit, challenge that a little bit with, there are men out there that do understand that concept. They already understand what role they play in the masculine feminine polarity. And you want to be careful at the same time. Yes, you can model that for your partner and let them know, but also you want to be careful that you're not trying to mold them into something that they are not already.
Exactly.
They need to be well on their way to healed as well.
I think that's the perspective, the difference in the perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You are working from the perspective of having a partnership that is healthy, that is working. And I'm working from a partnership that isn't quite where it needs to be.
Fair. Okay.
So I think I'm skewed a little more toward this is how you help that along.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're sitting with, well, you shouldn't have to help it along.
Well, and I do think there's a balance, of course. There's that middle path.
Which is middle path.
Yes.
Ding, ding.
It's the secret word. Oh my God, I just went Pee Wee Herman. Oh, that was a throwback. Holy cow. All right. But there is Cherry. Oh God. Okay.
There's a rabbit trail. Told you we'd go on one.
It. And
we're huge geeks too, by the way.
Because there is some room for educating your partner, learning you and the way that you function, but there also kind of almost has to be some groundwork already laid, because it should. And I'm not necessarily saying this specifically to you. This is to the people who are like, I can change him. Yeah. I can make him better. No. He's not the $6 million man. Don't.
Right.
No. Again, aging myself here with that reference. But
those of us who are of the right demographic
we get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not the $6 million man. You don't need to change him and make him better. You need to leave him alone and find the one that's already got the upgrades.
Right. Or figure out how to stay autonomous and sovereign in your own right if you do end up, if you're in a situation where you really do love the lug, you really don't want to upset the apple cart, then do the work on yourself.
No, that is absolutely true.
I'm do the work on yourself.
Ship
right.
Before
that's time. after you've made the choice, not before you made the choice. Ideally, you make those discriminations before you make the choice and early. Some of us were late to the game.
Hey, I was there the first time around.
Right. Some of us were late to the game. Some of us didn't do all of our due diligence. Some of us were still stuck in the I love him. Okay, you can love him until the cows come home. It's not going to change how he shows up in relationship.
Right.
It's up to you, if you choose to stay in that relationship, to find the fulfillment within yourself.
Right.
If you have a partner that isn't interested or not capable of being your riverbank, be your own riverbank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you will get pushed into the role of a Medusa or a Silky or some manipulative feminine creature that controlled and entrapped, and then that becomes his narrative of your dynamic. It's all about perspective. It's all about whether or not we're on the same page, because it's really easy to believe the story from the hero's point of view. Nobody looks at it from the villain's point of view. Nobody listens to the monster side of the story. Well, you may very well be the monster in somebody's story.
That's why I like Gregory Maguire's work so much.
Yes. Very good.
If you don't know who Gregory Maguire is, he wrote Wicked. The book, not the musical. The musical came later.
Yes.
But he looks at fairy tales and twists them.
Yes.
And looks at them from a different perspective.
There's a series, for those of you that are very interested in reading fairy tales to small people. There is a series of fairy tale books that are told from a female empowerment point of view. And the name right now, of course, is absolutely escaping me, but it is, I will look that up and I will attach a link to that, or we can cut this out and do another video on it later when I know more about what the hell I'm talking about. But it's all about twisting the view of the fairy tale to empowerment of the damsels in distress.
Right. Yeah. So, well,
that went all over the board.
It really did.
Hey, we were a flowing river. We went everywhere.
I love it, though. It's so funny, the difference in recording one of these with you versus when I am recording with Dennis and Charlie. Charlie is another men's coach that works with Dennis. And so Charlie just kind of keeps us in line and on track, because it will totally rabbit trail if I'm part of it. And he's like, so you're saying, and he'll bring it back. And I'm like,
I try to do that every once in a while.
Boring, and we do it to each other. We both do it.
But it's like, I love our rabbit trails. We explore stuff on our rabbit trails, and we come up with stuff that later we can look back in editing and go, ooh, let's expound upon that. Yeah. Or, that didn't need to be said. Let's cut that out. That's not necessary.
Exactly.
But we're very grateful to have you with us, and keep watching. Hit the like and subscribe button.
And give us feedback. Love to see that.
All right, folks. Bye.